do you think it is possible for the UK to have a trade deal with the EU during the transition period? What will happen if there is no trade deal?
I think it will be next to impossible for the UK to agree terms of a trade deal for two reasons. One, trade deals are complicated matters and often are a product of several years, even amongst countries that have much else in common. The second reason is a bigger reason, and that is that the UK from the very start has not had a particularly clear view as to what Brexit was going to be all about. Didn't want to have jurisdiction from the European Court, wanted to have some more control of immigration, and so on. But nothing very specific as to what Britain wanted out of Brexit, other than that old phrase, taking back control. Well, with 18,000 EU laws incorporated in the UK, with no view yet taken on which of these are to be kept, reformed, or rejected, I think, until the UK figures out what it wants Brexit to deliver, I think coming up to a firm free trade deal arrangement will be a very difficult and tall task for the Prime Minister.
But the British have been weighing the pros and cons. The pro-Brexit camp has argued allowing the UK to set its own trade policy will be good for the United Kingdom, while those critics say, well, leaving EU will be more beneficial. What do you think Boris Johnson's vision for the trade relations with the EU? And finally, it has to have some kind of relationship.
Well, he certainly has to have some relationship, given that the amount of money that trade that goes between the UK and the EU. EU is a massive thing for the UK, and it's the world's largest free trade area. And so a lot of the critics of the Prime Minister and those for Brexit were, why would we want to leave something like this to start on an unknown path, creating not yet free trade deals with other parts of the world, that maybe we can coordinate these things with our EU membership. So I think there would be a need for some type of relationship with the EU for sure, to mitigate some of the expected harm to the UK economy that every analysis has shown will happen. But I think it is really quite the tall order for the Prime Minister. His only idea at the moment, say, on taking back control on immigration, is to have a points-based system. Well, Britain's had a points-based system since 2008. So he wants to have tariff-free trade with the EU. Well, he's got it already. So what are the new things that he wants that we don't already have, that we don't already enjoy in the UK? I think we still don't know the answers to those questions, and he needs those answers fast, because he's got a year to go.
And another thing we don't answer to is probably Scotland. The Scottish National Party gained a landslide victory in the general elections. How do you think Brexit can affect cause for maybe another independence referendum in Scotland? And how will the UK take if that happened?
A terrific question, and a lot of eyes are on this issue, because in Scotland, the Scottish National Party made independence and an opposition to Brexit a key issue, given that Scotland was very much against Brexit in the referendum vote. The Prime Minister has said that he will oppose any such second referendum on independence for Scotland. But I think if Scotland were to feel pain from any Brexit delivered by the Prime Minister, then I think that's going to really pour salt in the wound and really inflame passions in Scotland quite a lot. The other thing I would look very closely at is Northern Ireland, which has been largely forgotten by the Prime Minister during the referendum debate. In Northern Ireland, we now, for the first time, have nationalists in charge. The nationalist parties are now the biggest group there. There's going to be a customs border set up in the Irish Sea that's going to separate Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK for customs deals. This is potentially a real game-changing thing that could see an independence movement resurrect itself in Northern Ireland, with potentially very damaging and frankly very worrying consequences, as we saw in the past with the Troubles. That could be reignited through that as well. So much to look for in Scotland over the next year or two, but also Northern Ireland. And for all these potentially big worrying scenarios for the Prime Minister, he no longer has anyone else to blame but himself, given his big majority now. He's now firmly in control, and will have a lot of difficulty trying to point the finger at anyone else if problems start to arise with his Brexit plans.
Indeed, and Mr. Johnson have to think through all those problems. Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas.